9 a.m. and 10 a.m. Events occur in real time.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Wednesday, it's June 29th, 2022. Sixth month of the year is almost over. Means it's almost July, which means NFL training camp is just around the corner. The long off season is coming to a conclusion. And when I say long, I mean it was definitely not that. The last couple of weeks have felt that way, but this has been quite an eventful NFL offseason, and there's still some things to come. But I think everyone is going to be excited to finally get some real football here very soon, and some meaningful football. The Hall of Fame game is early August, so that will be here in no time, and that really kicks off the preseason and the start of the real build up for the season. But we aren't going to be talking just yet heavily about the NFL. It is a new day for the NHL, and by that I mean there is a new Stanley Cup champion for the first time in 2 seasons, 3 years, 2 years. I don't really know the bubble and everything like that. I've kind of lost track of the actual time in days and months. But I do know the last 2 seasons, the Tampa Bay Lightning have been the Stanley Cup champion, and they are defending their title. Unfortunately for them, they came up just short as the Colorado Avalanche clinched over the weekend and won their first Stanley Cup in 21 years. And John, it's surprising to me because the last time they won the Cup, obviously, was in 2001, and that celebrated 22 years of Ray Bourque, former Bruin, of playing and not winning a cup, and he did so in his final game after 22 seasons. Well, it has been nearly that long, an entire Ray Bourque career since Colorado last won, which kind of seems surprising. But then you think about where they were just a few years ago, and then it really is surprising that they won in such a short time.
Yeah, remember when Ray Bourque came back to Boston City Hall with the Stanley Cup to have a celebration?
I was there.
And people ate it up because they hadn't been a champion in the city from 1986 to February 2002. So we're in the middle of a 16-year drought with any championship.
My entire life at that point, because I was born in 1986.
Yeah, so it was your fault, right? Because you came after the Celtics won their championship in 86. I came
during the 86 Red Sox series. So let's go through. Yeah, so I had some hangups as a child. Let's just put it that way.
Oh, I mean,
it worked out pretty well. It worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Tom Brady came along and rectified all those wrongs, right? Winning 6 Super Bowls. But yeah, so people celebrated a former player winning a Stanley Cup because there was nothing to celebrate, and then now we have Colorado, which put this team together and has built a real wagon. They're favorites to win it again next year.
To be fair, though, I mean, this wasn't just any player. It's hard for me to think of, certainly in Boston sports recently, because if you've been with any one of these teams for any period of time, you've probably won a championship. But, to think of a player that was so universally loved, not only for, the person, but obviously the ability. I mean, you're going to find very few defensemen in the history of the NHL, not just the Bruins history, that are better than Ray Bourque. Very unique situation where he spent it's like, imagine if Tom Brady, just use your best imagination, John. I know this is going to be impossible, but imagine if Tom Brady hadn't won a Super Bowl. And it was 2019, and he had played 20 years with the New England Patriots, and he was great, but the team just came up short. Now, again, use your imagination, because that would, in this day and age, probably be looked at as a failure. But imagine he goes and gets traded to a franchise and wins, sort of like, he went to the Buccaneers and won a Super Bowl with another franchise. But pretend he hadn't won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. That's probably, again, probably the closest I could think of, and I'm literally creating fan fiction here. You know what I'm saying? Because even in my scenario, had Brady been the quarterback for the Patriots for almost 20 years and had not won a Super Bowl, I don't think he'd be universally loved like Ray Bork was. Like, people wanted to see that. The most diehard Boston Bruins fan wanted to see Ray Bork win a Stanley Cup. The most diehard Patriots fan today would be like, oh, I root for the logo on the jersey, blah, blah, blah. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it would be different. So it was such a unique situation that we celebrated an athlete. Like, I don't think, you know, the Celtics and Celtics fans would celebrate Antoine Walker if he got shipped off and won. Well, he won with Dallas, didn't he? In 2006?
He won with Miami.
Or Miami, right.
Miami.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't throw a parade for Antoine Walker. Again, very different situation, but yeah, that whole Ray Bork thing was wild. And then to think that his entire career has almost gone through 21 years since that team actually last won. So it's pretty remarkable.
And this time around, they're led by an elite defenseman who's being compared to Bobby Orr, which is incredible. Cale Makar, who is a fellow UMass guy like you, right? So you've got that connection to him. And
now,
he won the Conn Smythe.
I don't consider myself a biased person, John.
Mm-hmm.
Chuckle under your breath after we get off the
air.
I
will. Yep. I will.
However, and normally I don't buy into some of these early over-the-top exaggerations, but he's doing things literally only guys like Bobby Orr have accomplished. Points-wise, winning the Norris, the success, the Stanley Cup early being a key part of that. And again, I'm not just saying it because, you know, I'm a big Bobby Orr fan and obviously a big fan of UMass. But he's a thrill to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see how his career plays out, because you look at the landscape of the end. He's the defenseman of he's a guy who's going to rack up Norris Trophy after Norris Trophy. It is how it is. He's an elite offensive talent, and he's also an elite defender. And generally, you don't get a player like that is such a high level of doing both in this league right now. You have really good defensive forwards like Patrice Bergeron, but to have that eliteness as a defender and to be so young too. I mean, that's the thing, and I think that's the thing that really has people drawing the Bobby Orr comparisons, is that it only seems the reason that he's going to get better. I mean, this kid is such a he's almost green still. You know, that's how little NHL experience he has. But when you look at what he's accomplished to this point, it's hard to stop those comparisons and say, all right, let's slow down a little bit, because, you know, the reality of it is, no, he's starting to do things that very few people have done in this league, and this league is pretty old.
Yeah, without question. I mean, since Orr retired in 1979, there's always been some defenseman that you thought could be the next Bobby Orr, whether it was Dennis Potvin with the Islanders or Ray Bork with the Bruins. I know Paul Coffey was thought of that way as well. Coffey was elite offensively. I don't think he was quite at the level of Orr or Bork or Potvin or even Cale Makar.
Bobby Orr won scoring titles. I mean, that's we're
amazing.
Talking,
yeah. He had 1 year where he had over 100 assists. I mean, his plus minus 1 year, I think, was 217, some like ridiculous number. No, I mean he's in the discussion with Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, and Gordie Howe, the four greatest players in the history of the sport. So you know, let's kind of keep him separate from everyone. But there've been a lot of great defensemen that have come down the pike since, but not many of them are that great in their own end and also capable of putting up great points. The best pure defensive defenseman I ever saw was Larry Robinson with the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, he was a much more mobile, versatile version of Zdeno Chara. He was just bigger and stronger than everybody. And on his side of the ice, he just shut people down. And he was also a pretty elite offensive player, but not at the level of Makar or Bork or some of these other great defensemen like Paul Coffey.
And like, that's the thing. You think of Ray Bork and you say elite offensive player. It doesn't even come close to Bobby Orr. I mean, and that's how, you know, that's just how different it was. And talk about the ultimate what if. Obviously, what happens if he doesn't ruin his knees? You know what I mean? What is to come? Because Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux. I mean, these are the guys that are talked about as the greatest players ever. And Bobby Orr is certainly, he's not mentioned for sure. I mean, he's mentioned in these discussions, but it usually ends with, he had such a short career, and it is what if, and with him, it is the ultimate what if, because he could have, he could have dominated the league much longer than he did. And that nice Larry Robinson reference, very very good coach too. Won a Stanley Cup with the Devils back in 2001, or I'm sorry, 2000, year before Ray Bourque won. So actually, the actual year that he traded to Colorado, because they didn't actually win that first season with him. They lost. They didn't make it to the final. So
you must have loved that. You must have loved that Colorado team. You had Patrick Roy and net.
Well, here's the thing. Here's John. Obviously a Bruins fan.
You're a Brodeur guy. I got myself confused for a moment.
Yeah. So I obviously a Bruins fan, but to that point, as we discussed, my entire life was the Loserville. That's what Boston was. I mean, let's face it. The best thing going for the Bruins was the fact that they won made the playoffs 29 straight years. Not the fact that they didn't win a playoff series. It was just like, the streak continues. Who cares if we get steamrolled in the first round by like the Canadiens or the Devils or whoever. So obviously I was a Bruins fan, but my favorite athlete, my version of Tom Brady before Tom Brady was Brodeur, and partly I remember watching them win the Cup their first in 1995, but I was a goalie. So I love the way Brodeur played. It wasn't the conventional stand up, that type of play. I wanted to be that. That's how I modeled my game. So obviously there was a part of me that always appreciated the Devils. I wasn't a Devils fan, but I was a Brodeur fan. Sort of like how I'll root for the Bucks now because of Brady, except if it involves the Patriots. And it was the same thing with the Bruins back in the day. This was a little conflicting, John, because I thought the series was incredible. I wanted Ray Bourque to win, but I also wanted to see Brodeur and the Devils go back to back, because they were defending their title then. And I think that would have been, it was a great series and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I was thrilled to see Ray Bourque hoist the cup. And to be honest, that call that, when Sakic gave the cup right through, I still get goosebumps. It's like, that's not a team. I don't have a Colorado championship, whatever, or this, that, and the other. It was just knowing and being a fan of Ray Bourque and just the nostalgia and remembering that as the kid. Now it's like, at the time going to that City Hall rally, it was fun, but now you look back and, that kind of, again, really kicked off, because just a few months later, the Patriots won the Super Bowl. And at that point, things just, you did a complete 180. My mindset went from, I'll be lucky to ever see any championship won. And then it goes to, well, it's been a year. Come on, guys, let's go. Forget 86 years with the Red Sox. I want 4 World Series in the next 15 years. Well, there you go. You got it.
Now back to that series. Did that go 7 games?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, because I think what happened was Game 7 I didn't see because I was at a U2 concert at TD Garden. So it was like June of 2001.
Yeah.
And I remember the Edge came out in a Ray Bourque jersey. Obviously you know how to, get the crowd ramped up by playing to the crowd. So obviously I would assume 99% of the people in that arena were Ray Bourque fans. So, and they kept giving updates. This is again before Twitter and social media and, so
cell phones.
2001. Yeah. Cell phones. Basically, I didn't even have a cell phone at that point. A lot of people didn't. So they had the big, Michael Douglas cell phones at Wall Street where you needed 2 hands to hold it. But yeah. So, every so often they would give you an update on what the score of the final was. And everybody was excited when Colorado won it. But now you're a Brodeur guy, obviously. So, but in having those discussions, do you have to bash Patrick Roy?
No.
Appreciate his greatness as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because that's the thing. I was a Patrick Roy fan too. I also think that era, the mid 90s to early 2000s was one of the best eras of goaltending that we could ever have. I mean, you talk about Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek, Eddie Belfour. I mean, the list goes on and on and on with elite goaltending. So, no, and I think I know what you're getting at with how quarterbacks and stuff are especially covered or discussed, where it's like, well, if you're a Brady fan, you have to bash Rodgers. And look, I'm guilty of that too. But I mean, I think me doing that has been more provoked by others as opposed to me wanting to do that. I reluctantly do that, John, and I've expressed that to you. Even though some people sit here and think you hate Aaron Rodgers, I'm like, no, I really don't. But sometimes I have to set the record straight, and I don't mind doing that. No, that wasn't the case with goalies. That's why I'm saying that series, that 2001 series, was pretty incredible. I believe New Jersey was up 3-2 in that series, so they had an opportunity to obviously close it out, but failed to do so. And Colorado ended up coming back. But I mean, the list goes on and on with that team. I mean, you had Dave Anderchuk was on that team. Rob Blake was on that team. I mean, these are all guys that were on that Colorado team that came over and won their first cup. Which again, I mean, Ray Bourque was, the guy, the guy that was the main focus of that. No, I'm sorry, not Dave Anderchuk. He did that with Tampa a couple years earlier, but he was a part of that trade with Ray Bourque going to Colorado, except he left before they won the cup, I believe, and then ended up going to Tampa Bay. And when they won in 2004, he got to have his own moment like that, where I think it was 21 years. So, So I little misremember. I caught myself though. I figured it out. Like I got it. It's been a while, John. It's been 20 some odd years since all that.
It's been a while, yeah. I mean, if Bourque doesn't win that cup, and goes his entire career without winning a cup, then I would think he would be the greatest player in league history to not have a Stanley Cup. Because I thought that Ovechkin was that guy up until a few years ago.
Yeah,
I think Ovechkin's a top 10 player without question. So until he won that cup, he just went through the top 10 players in the history of the league. And everyone had at least one cup. Obviously, Gretzky had 4, et cetera. But it was like, boy, Ovechkin's a top 10 player. He doesn't have a cup yet. And he finally did win it a few years ago.
Yeah. And, I mean, if they were both currently right now, I mean, Bourque would still probably be the guy. I mean, just based on obviously the longevity and just the success that he had from, and Ovechkin too. I mean, that's not underselling Ovechkin. That's just me thinking that I think Ray Bourque was a better play. You know what I mean? Like if they had both not won a Stanley Cup and they were both kind of in the same position as they are, like just wipe out both their cups. I think Ray would be, but you're talking about, 2 of the greatest players to have never won. Fortunately, they did. Ray had to wait just a little bit longer and at the very last second, because I don't even know if he was coming back after that season regardless. So that would have been interesting. So anyways.
Well, he talks about that they had offered him another year and he decided not to, that he was just happy with winning there. And back to your point about Ray Bourque being beloved in the city, he still lives here. He's got a restaurant on the North End. So,
I was there like 2 weeks ago.
Exactly. You picked that place out because Ray Bourque owned it. But I think that Brady, I don't know if we'll ever see him again here. I mean, he may show up, when he gets the red jacket from the Patriots to the Hall of Fame. But I mean, Brady is not going to be a New Englander going forward, whereas Ray Bourque is still his family and loves the area.
Part of that too is also his, Ray Bourque's family wasn't super famous. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there's Giselle's family, so it creates a little bit different dynamic in that sense. Sure. I think once Brady finally retires, that segment of Patriots fans that have, like I said, done the hard nose, I root for the logo on the jersey, blah blah blah, all that nonsense. I think that segment's going to come to their senses, and like Brady's going to be beloved here. I mean, how can you not? I mean, the guy. It's like there's been things that other players have done that again. Ray Bourque wasn't perfect. I mean, he's had his issues. He's had a DUI, a very public DUI arrest, or whatever. But no one cares. And look, I mean, it is what it is. No one thinks he's a bad guy. I like it. Like that's what I'm saying. Like people are obviously frustrated that Brady ultimately left, and they'll get over it eventually. But I think I think he will. I just think the whole dynamic in general is different. Like, even if everything that happened to Ray Bork happened today, I don't know specifically in this city, it would matter. You know what I mean? Maybe Minnesota or, somewhere that, they're just happy to get to the playoffs or whatever. I think it might be something like that, but that's not where we are yet now. So, speaking of the playoffs, I mentioned at the top of the show that we're getting pretty close to the start of NFL training camp, which obviously means that the NFL season is just around the corner. And there's I always like to kind of just look at some of the odds, see what some of the early projections are. And one of the things that popped out to me, John, was the odds for the NFL or the AFC Championship. And I'm not saying that I'm predicting that they could make a run to the Super Bowl. Not win it, just make a run to the Super Bowl. But New England at plus 2,500 to win the AFC seems like a pretty darn good value to me. I'm just saying, like, 25. I said this before we got on the air. Would I be surprised? Or first of all, am I predicting that the Patriots are going to go to the Super Bowl? No. There's about maybe 3 other teams I'd pick ahead of them right now. But if you're going to tell me or ask me, would I be shocked if they made it to the Super Bowl this year? I'd probably say no because, well, it's New England. So, John, I mean, I know in a past life, you enjoyed the numbers and making some bets, but 2,500 plus 2,500 on New England right now, I feel like that's too hard to pass up.
Well, it's good value. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think they're going to even make the playoffs. But
maybe that's a discussion for another day when we have more than 5 minutes left.
That is. Well, we'll have to see more. Obviously, what happens in training camp and how along. If Mac Jones continues to develop.
Honestly, that's the key.
We know all that.
That
absolutely
separate from everything else. If everything else stays the exact same, it all depends on Mac Jones's development. So.
Exactly. Because does he become a difference maker when the game is there with 7 minutes left and it comes down to the 2 quarterbacks?
Look,
is he going to be the better guy? That's important.
You talk to his teammates and you're probably believing that he can.
No doubt.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you kept opening the door for a couple comments that I had in my head. But yeah, look, I mean that's really the thing here, and what you're betting on is the development of Mac Jones. If he can make a leap in year 2, like we've had, and that's the problem, and I've mentioned it a lot. The coverage of the Patriots in particular is so off the wall all the times that you can never, ever really keep track of it. Like a few weeks ago, it was doom and gloom because there was worry amongst the players in the locker room, even though they hadn't had any practices, and who's going to be the offensive coordinator. Oh, my God. Now we're starting to hear, like I said, from players and coaches that actually are involved with all this, and you hear things like, oh, no, Mac's a goofy guy, but when it comes time to playing and being in game mode, he's like super focused, and you start to say, okay, that's like a guy we used to know here. Not saying he's that guy, but those are the things you would hope that he would emulate and be able to replicate in some form or fashion for success. And me, my favorite qualities in quarterbacks are accuracy and what's in between your head. And I think Mac he's accurate. Let's just put it this way. I've seen nothing to suggest that he's not accurate to this point, and no one really has throughout his very short NFL career. So to suggest that he is basically defying what you've seen actually on paper. I think he's a smart player. Now, again, I mean, what opportunity is going to be presented to him? I mean, there's been reports that New England, the coaching staff kind of eased him into some of these situations, and maybe that's true. Maybe they were just kind of not wanting to overload him and kind of make sure. We've seen that mistake made plenty of times with other teams where they just put too much on a talented player, and sometimes they just can't handle it and they never develop right. Maybe he could have thrown more than 3 passes against Buffalo, but the Patriots erred on the side of caution. I'm willing to give the Patriots coaching staff the benefit of the doubt in this situation. So yeah, I'm sitting here looking at it saying, oh well, plus 25 down $100, John. I could be $2,500 richer and celebrating the Patriots going to the Super Bowl. And I think that's not a bad bet when, Kansas City, same from Bovada, plus 600, Buffalo plus 300, Cincinnati, Baltimore plus 1,100. So I think there's a lot of good opportunity there, to say the least. If you're of course a someone who enjoys making bets, but it's just kind of speaking to the excitement of the season coming up.
Yeah, I mean, the value's there. There's nothing better than hitting a 25 to 1 shot, whether you're at the track, and you look at a horse and go, wow, this horse is going off at 25 to 1. Pretty good. I think I got a chance here to win the race, and then the horse goes ahead and wins the race. So, yeah, I mean, you expect the Patriots to be in contention. Their defense looks to me like they had a decent draft. The defense hopefully will be a little faster than last year and kind of, end the season in better shape. But it does come back to Mac Jones. Is he going to develop into a difference maker? And I think he will. I think in his second year we'll see that. It appears to me that the guy puts in all the time necessary, has a lot of good qualities, and that his teammates buy into him, which again is another key quality for a quarterback. So those are all very positive things.
Well, that's exactly what you want to see at this point in his career. Is you want, like I said, I mean, I don't care so much about arm strength or like wacky, crazy plays. Like if you don't develop into a quarterback, that's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather see precision, accuracy. It's maybe being a little bit more cautious, certainly to start. But eventually you want to see him develop. And I that's what we're waiting for. And there's no reason to think that he's not going to take another step. Now, doesn't mean he's going to become an elite quarterback, like, top 5 quarterback. But again, we don't know. We really don't know. And so far, what we've seen both from him in his last year at Alabama and in his first year in New England, at the very least, he seems like a pretty darn good quarterback. So I'm going to surely put a little bit of dough on that plus 2,500, because that's a little bit too hard to pass up. So all right, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back possibly tomorrow, definitely on Friday. Sure. But yeah, keep an eye out. Be sure to give us a follow at FPC Radio Live, at IGLEN31, and of course give John a follow at JohnSap25. Thank you very much